Welcome to Weekly World News on Spring Nectar TV, brought to you by Vibha Ramesh, Los Angeles, United States. First, the top headlines. Joe Biden threatened by Kansas man. Trump promises pardon to Capitol rioters. India's election commission eased rally curbs. Union budget at a glance. Ukraine's capital urges withdrawal of troops. Storm Malik left several thousands without power in northern UK. Protests over COVID vaccine mandate in Canada. Moving on to news in detail. US President Joe Biden was threatened by a man who claimed his act was in response to God's voice. News has it that the Kansas man called the police department in Independence, Kansas, and said he was going to visit the president. He also stated in an interview that God had asked him to chop off the head of the serpent in the heart of the nation. Subsequently, the man was arrested on Saturday. Former President Donald Trump attended a campaign rally in Conroe, Texas, where he made a promise to excuse the rioters involved in the Capitol attack of January 6. In his words, as remarked at the midterm elections campaign rally in relation to the 2024 presidential elections, "If I run and if I win, we will treat those people from January 6 fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons because they are being treated so unfairly." The promise came as a shock to many, even to some Trump supporters, as the Capitol attack had killed 7 people, injured over 100 officers, and over 700 people were charged on different accounts. This was evident when Lindsey Graham, one of Trump's staunch supporters, disagreed with the promise, as he said on CBS's Face the Nation. "I don't want to send any signals that it was okay to defile the Capitol. I want to deter what people did on January 6 and those who did it. I hope they go to jail and get the book thrown at them because they deserve it." Meanwhile, the East Coast experienced a freezing spell on Sunday when Noreaster dumped heaps of snow. The storm journeyed from Virginia to Maine, offloading several inches of snow. News has it that Massachusetts was the worst hit, with one town getting nearly 30 inches of snow and losing power supply too. Noreaster is said to have triggered close to 1,400 flight cancellations on Sunday. Atmospheric researchers opine that the intensity of the storm could have been influenced by climate change, as Professor Jason Furtado of University of Oklahoma Meteorology said that warmer ocean waters are certainly playing a role in the strengthening of the storm system and increased moisture available for the storm. But it isn't the only thing. According to sources, the storm has taken away the lives of at least 3 people. Moving on to India, the poll-bound states commenced physical poll campaigns from Tuesday. Subsequently, the Election Commission increased the number of people allowed to attend in-person meetings in outdoor spaces from 500 to 1,000. That said, the Commission confirmed that the ban on road shows and processions will continue to be in place until February 11. Said a senior functionary, Election Commission felt it is comparatively easier to enforce the attendance limit and COVID norms for public meetings in designated grounds and indoor spaces. Meanwhile, Dr. Bharati Pawar, Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare, announced that the 2022-23 Union budget will focus on mental health and health infrastructure, among others. Confirming the Union budget, Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman stated that to better access quality mental health counseling and care services, a national tele-mental health program will be launched, which will include a network of 23 tele-mental health centers of excellence, with the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences being the nodal center. A landmark trial in medicine with specific focus on COVID revealed that a single nasal drop was enough to trigger an infection. Based on the study conducted on healthy volunteers, it took just a few days to get infected and peaked on day 5 into the infection. According to the trial's chief investigator, our study reveals some very interesting clinical insights, particularly around the short incubation period of the virus, extremely high viral shedding from the nose, as well as the utility of lateral flow tests, with potential implications for public health. Over to Ukraine. In view of the lingering fear of Russian invasion, the capital requested Moscow to retreat its troops from the border. Kyiv also urged to resume dialogue with the West to de-escalate tensions. Commenting on the situation, Kyiv's foreign minister tweeted on Sunday saying, if Russian officials are serious when they say they don't want a new war, Russia must continue diplomatic engagement and pull back military forces it amassed along Ukraine's borders and in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. Besides, US officials remarked that the massing of troops along the border also included supplies required to treat casualties. While the US waits to hear from Russia, officials confirmed that NATO has no plans of withdrawing from Eastern Europe, nor will it prohibit Ukraine from probable future entry. Moving on, referring to the UK being judged based on the level of support it extended to Russia, Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned of the beginning of a humanitarian and military disaster if Russia invaded Ukraine. He also added that contrary to what many people believe, the UK and the US were not exaggerating the scale of fear but speaking of the reality. He went on to state that Putin is trying to redraw the security map of Europe and to impose a new Yalta, new zones of influence. It would not just be Ukraine that was brought back into the Russian zone of influence. It would be Georgia and Moldova and other countries. This is absolutely critical at this moment, he said. Meanwhile, Storm Malik hit northern UK, leaving several thousands with no electricity. To this end, nearly 7,000 homes were left without power, and even as Storm Malik left its footprints, people braced for Storm Corey, which was expected to bring with it winds of up to 90 miles per hour. News has it that the brunt of the storm was felt by County Durham, rural Aberdeenshire, and Northumberland. And on Sunday, Storm Corey hit with 92 miles per hour winds and moved eastwards across Scotland. According to Paul Glendinning, a director at Northern Power Grid, we have successfully restored supplies to more than 60,000 customers. But given the amount of work that there is to do, and the fact that we are expecting more high winds during Sunday afternoon, we think that it is likely that a relatively small proportion of our customers will remain without power beyond Sunday night. And on the pandemic, schools in England have reinstated mask wearing for students and staff owing to the spike in COVID infections. Commenting on the early lifting of restrictions on mask wearing, the Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union remarked, "It is very likely that we are going to see increased disruption in schools across the next weeks, with cases rising among both primary and secondary pupils. The government has acted prematurely in removing face masks and has acted tardily in providing ventilation solutions." Over to North Korea, Pyongyang launched a missile on Sunday that traveled 497 miles and reached an altitude of 1,242 miles before landing in the sea. The launch is known to be the 7th round of weapons launch executed this month. The test was condemned by the US as it implied an intent to coerce the Biden administration to resume the long-pending nuclear negotiations. Commenting on the launch, the US military's Indo-Pacific Command said that the United States condemns these actions and calls on North Korea to refrain from further destabilizing acts. And on Sunday, the US directly appealed to North Korea to join the discussions on missile and nuclear programs as a senior official of the Biden administration told reporters that we believe it is completely appropriate and completely correct to start having some serious discussions. Moving on, protesters in the thousands thronged the streets of Ottawa, Canada, following the announcement of vaccine mandates by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The protest that began as a rally of truckers protesting against the mandatory vaccination requirement to cross borders soon accelerated into demonstrations against the government. One of the trucker demonstrators said, "I'm not able to work no more because I can't cross the border. I refuse the vaccine." In the words of the owner of a transportation company who is an anti-vaxxer, it's not just about the vaccines, it's about stopping the public health mandates altogether. The Prime Minister, however, was undeterred by the protests as he stated that the behavior of anti-vaxxers was considered a mark of disgust by Canadians. He added, "We're not intimidated by those who hurl abuse at small business workers and steal food from the homeless. We won't give in to those who fly racist flags. We won't cave to those who engage in vandalism. There is no place in our country for threats, violence, or hatred." And here's a news roundup of the pandemic in Europe. While Austria lifted its lockdown restrictions for the unvaccinated, Switzerland is all set to reopen its economy. To that end, the Chancellor of Austria announced that starting Saturday, restaurants and shops will be allowed to function until midnight, and the limit on social gatherings would be increased from 25 to 50. The move was preceded by Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, and France returning to almost normal life last week. Despite a surge in cases led by the Omicron variant, the move to reopen the economy and step into normal life was made due to the fact that hospitalizations did not proportionately increase with rise in infections. Bringing you the last in this week's news report, did you know? Did you know that the novel Gatsby still stands as the longest book written without the letter E? The book was written by American author Ernest Vincent Wright in 1939 and consists of 50,000 words. So how did he do it? Wright used alternative usage for common words that contained the letter E, especially for past tense. For example, he used did walk instead of walked, and replaced words like beauty and forever with synonyms like charm and always. The fact that a book that long could be written without the use of the most frequently used letter in the English language baffled everyone. What's more, there's a term for a work that is done by consciously avoiding one or more commonly used letters from the script. It's called a lipogram. As you ponder over that last item, I'll end this week's news report. I'll see you again next Friday with more world news on Spring Nectar TV. Stay safe.